Life, Madam Speaker, when people look to our leaders, not for applause lines, corporate buzzwords, social media clips, but for honesty, humility, seriousness. They look to this chamber and ask whether those entrusted with power truly understand the weight of the burdens on the shoulders of the people. Now is one of those times, because Canadians are tired. They are exhausted. Not because they don't want to work, but because they bear the burden of an extremely expensive government that takes too much and returns too little, that focuses on its own obsessions rather than on the needs of the people who pay the bills. Those Canadians who pay the bills, the ordinary Canadians, no, the extraordinary Canadians, who build the homes, who swing the hammers, who frame our buildings, who drive our trucks, who invest in our businesses, who mortgage their homes to start new enterprises. Those are the silent voices whose murmurs of pain and suffering have grown louder and louder without any heed from government. They needed hope yesterday. They needed relief. They needed evidence that someone in this government had heard them, believed them, respected their sacrifices, and was finally prepared to act in their interests instead of the government's interests. Instead, they were met with the most expensive failure in modern Canadian history. This Prime Minister, the figurehead that the Liberals had paraded in front of Canadians as a new guarantor of discipline, competence, stability, the man we were told would clean up the Liberal mess, has brought a bigger shovel and dug a deeper hole. Far, far deeper. For nearly a year, the Liberals and their supporters told us that this Prime Minister was different than the man he had advised for the preceding 5 years. Smarter, more responsible, that he would be the adult in the room. But even before the budget was presented, the promises were all broken. It was revealed that the mythology was false, because this budget confirmed the truth. Until this government, in this government, there is no discipline, no restraint, no plan. Only politics, posturing, and pain for the people who do the work, pay the taxes, and hold the country together. This Prime Minister is proving to be the most expensive in Canadian history. With a $78.3 billion deficit, his is twice the size that Trudeau left behind, $16 billion bigger than he promised, the biggest by far outside of the COVID period. And over the 5 years that follow this budget, the Prime Minister expects to add $314 billion of new debt. That is a third of $1 trillion, or 20 grand for every family in Canada. Think about that. We were told that the adults were finally here, but instead, the bill payers of this country are being told to brace for yet another reckless round of spending. $10 million of new debt added every single hour. Every hour, Canadians trim groceries, delay children, move in with their parents, take on second jobs, while the government indebts them $10 million an hour. Not for homes, not for prosperity, not for any benefit of the people, but for the survival of the government itself. And where does this indulgence take us all? The national debt is now $1.35 trillion. To put that into perspective, that is by far the highest in Canadian history. A newborn child in this country is born with $30,000 of debt to his name, and a family of four, $120,000 of debt. That is a small mortgage for most people, and that is just the debt they owe through their federal government. Now, our young people are told that they have to put their dreams on hold to pay this crushing burden. And what do they get for it? More doctors, more nurses, more homes, more paychecks? No, none of the above, Madam Speaker. The money goes to interest on that debt. This government is now spending $55.6 billion. That's more than we transfer for health care to the provinces, more than the government collects in GST. So when you pay GST next time on a purchase, know that every penny is going to pay bankers and bondholders rather than paying nurses and doctors. That is the human cost. Every year, Canadian families spend $3,300 on interest for the federal debt alone, money that will not fund a single MRI machine. It will be waste layered upon waste. And while Canadians tighten their belts, eat lower quality food and less of it, they hold off on their dreams. Liberals offer one thing in return: decline disguised as virtue. They promised that the debt to GDP ratio would fall. It rises. This Prime Minister promised that confidence would return and investment would return. But then on his own budget graph shows that investment is actually collapsing in real time. Every single quarter that he has been in office in this calendar year, we'll have seen a serious decline in investment. So much for spend less and invest more. Mr. Speaker, they promised stability. They delivered stagnation. They promised the next generation a fair shot. They've delivered them a sentence to slow growth and high costs. And that might sound like economists speak, but here is the real human cost of that. As Canadians walk into grocery stores, they see that since March, when the Prime Minister was elected on the promise that he would be judged by the prices at the grocery store, strawberries are up 25%, beef sirloin up 25%, beef stew up 20%, coffee 20%, chicken and drumsticks up 17%, salad dressing another 17%, pork ribs 15%, chicken thighs 14%, even basic mushrooms 13%. Canadians are not eating gourmet, Madam Speaker. In fact, many of them are not eating some days at all. A recent poll by a recent survey and study done by a food bank association demonstrated that over 10% of Canadians are now skipping meals for an entire day because they cannot afford to eat. Food bank usage tells the story. It has doubled since 2019, when this Prime Minister became the economic advisor to his predecessor. 1 in 5 Canadians who go to a food bank have a job, but their paycheck doesn't buy them food. And while the Liberals keep telling us that they're going to bring in a school food program, since they made that promise, children going to food banks have doubled to 700,000 a year. A month. 700,000 children a month are relying on food banks. And hanging over every farm, every factory, every trucker who moves goods, every person who has anything in a modern civilized life is the massive and growing industrial carbon tax. Yes, it is still there. It's true, the government has paused the visible carbon tax thanks to Conservative pressure. But they have maintained, and in this budget decided to increase the industrial carbon tax, which punishes those who produce food and those who build homes. Let me quote directly from the food professor, who warned, "It's not gone. The industrial carbon tax, the worst part, is still there. Only the consumer portion was reduced to zero. Processors and growers shoulder heavy costs. The industrial carbon tax remains. Pay attention. It continues to erode competitiveness in the agri-food sector. And most damning of all, the U.S. produces food more efficiently and more cheaply than we do. The cost gap is growing, not shrinking. When experts are practically begging the government to stop harming food production with high taxes on every aspect of the food chain, then this is a matter of ideology, not of human need. And let us be very clear what this tax actually is. It is a levy on the steel and the tractor that rolls across our fields. Every grain dryer that preserves and dries the harvest, every greenhouse heater that helps vegetables grow in the winter, every truck that ships food from farm to table, every bag of fertilizer, every pallet of lumber, every sack of cement, every pound of steel, every piece of rebar, every roofing truss, and every load of drywall becomes more expensive when you apply a carbon tax on the things that Canadians make. It might be a well-concealed tax, but it is an extremely expensive tax, one that the Prime Minister plans to more than double over the next several years and keep increasing even after that. It is no wonder, therefore, that the government is actually increasing food prices in Canada at faster rate than in the United States. Now, it's not just food, it's housing. The carbon tax applies, the industrial carbon tax applies on everything that housing makes. And to give a little bit of chump change back to a very small number of people who happen to meet the exact and highly limited definition, the government has provided a unworkable GST rebate, only going to first-time buyers who buy new homes. Here's the problem with that. The Venn diagram of new buyer and new home is next to nothing. New buyers typically buy resale homes. Those never had taxes on them in the first place. Typically, new homes are bought by second, third, fourth, and fifth-time home buyers because, of course, new homes are more expensive, and you have to have already been in the market. That's right. So the Prime Minister has successfully engineered a rebate that 95% of Canadians are ineligible to receive. It's basically worthless to almost all of the people of the country. Meanwhile, he made a promise that he would help the municipalities cut their development taxes in half. That promise goes unkept, and so today, in this province of Ontario, 30% of the cost of a new home is taxes, taxes, and taxes. And the Prime Minister has not removed or eliminated those taxes despite the promise that he made in the election. And let me quote, therefore, Scott Anderson, Chief Executive Officer of the Ontario Home Builders Association, and I quote, "The government's inaction will put 40,000 jobs in Ontario at risk, from architects and engineers to trades and sub-trades across the residential construction sector. The estimated direct and indirect economic impact from these job losses on Ontario's economy is $5.3 billion. Meanwhile, our tradespeople are losing their jobs because homes are not getting built. Home building is collapsing after the Prime Minister promised that he would double it. Yesterday's budget makes the problem worse. We're failing to remove the taxes that were already there while piling on the new and more expensive industrial carbon tax. But what is most galling of all is the wordplay. Bonjour tout le monde. Is the wordplay that they use to justify it all. They say, we're not spending, we're investing. This sounds like a new buzzword, but it's actually very old. The Prime Minister Justin Trudeau claimed that he was going to invest when he promised a small deficit of $10 billion that would be gone in 3 years. Remember that? He said the budget would balance itself. Now, I don't say that derisively because he actually had a well-thought-out chain of steps that he believed would happen. He said, if you borrow money and you spend it in the economy, it will cause economic growth and investment that will then go back into tax revenues and the budget will balance itself. That is, he didn't express it in those sorts of terms, but that's what he meant. And that's exactly what the Prime Minister today is promising. He's claiming that deficits can be converted into investment. Well, there's 3 reasons why that never happens. First of all, and by the way, you don't have to take my word for it. The investment numbers themselves are clear. Since the government started adding new debt, investment in Canada has collapsed. We had the worst investment per capita of any country in the G7 and the worst drop in Canadian history as the Liberals doubled deficits. So there is a negative correlation between deficits and investment. Why? First, everything comes from something. Nothing comes from nothing. Governments get deficit financing only 2 ways. They print it or they borrow it. If they print it, they increase the money supply faster than the things money buys and you get inflation. We've seen that. Or they borrow it out of the marketplace. That somebody has to lend it, meaning the money that is lent to the government cannot be put to other more productive uses. This is called the crowding out effect. That's what economists call it. It's when government borrows money out of the economy, depriving the private sector of the investment that it needs for more productive activities. And therefore, when government borrows out of the economy in order to spend back into the economy, there is no net increase in economic activity. It is simply redirected to another purpose, away from productive private sector investment towards unproductive government spending. And so you take money away from factories, pipelines, warehouses, tech research, and other income-generating assets, to give it to bureaucracy that ultimately devours the money and never produces a return. Now, we saw this. The most incredible example, of course, was in Israel, which was running massive deficits in the 1990s and paying out 6% interest on its government bonds. This starved the Israeli economy of investment. When the government finally stopped spending, balanced its budget, investment in the tech sector exploded because bondholders were forced to actually invest in productive R&D rather than passively handing their money over for a government-guaranteed return. And as a result of paying down debt, they unlocked more investment, and there was a venture capital boom that meant that right now Israel has more companies trading on the NASDAQ exchange than does all of Europe, a continent with 75 times more people. So if we want to unlock investment, one of the things we need to stop doing is borrowing that investment out of the economy. Instead, leave it in the hands of productive private sector investment that will grow and expand our economy. Madam Speaker, the reason why governments' deficits don't produce more investment and economic activity as well is because people are not stupid. They know that today's deficits are tomorrow's taxes. And so businesses and individuals tend to hoard their money in anticipation of future tax increases when they see that there are large-scale deficits in the present. This has been borne out by research by the IMF, which found that high-debt countries like Canada with high deficits tend to have households holding back on investments of their own, and the same goes for business. The only reason why money-making projects do not happen in Canada is not because we aren't spending and borrowing enough money. It's because the government is standing in the way of those very same projects. What it needs to do is get out of the way. Get out of the way. Get out of the way and let mines be dug in 2 or 3 years approval time. Get out of the way, approve pipelines that can go to the coast so that we no longer have to give all of our oil to the Americans at discounts. Get out of the way, grant rapid permits for LNG plants, massive plants that are $30 or $40 billion, totally funded by the private sector and massively profitable because the price for a million metric British thermal units in Canada is $3, where in Asia it's over $10. We can make enormous amounts of money if the government will get out of the way and let these things happen. But of course, that would be no fun for the government. Nobody wants written on their tombstone, "This here lies politician Smith. He got out of the way." They all want to say he built this thing, he built that thing with other people's money, right? And so it serves the ego of the politician to take the money out of the economy and put it back somewhere else, even though it costs enormous amounts, or to block this economic activity only to subsidize that same economic activity. You know, it's like the great President Ronald Reagan said, if a liberal sees something that moves, they tax it. If it keeps moving, they regulate it. And when it stops moving, they subsidize it. Why not just do none of the above? Why not just get out of the way and let free people, entrepreneurs, workers, unlock their incredible natural potential to build, make, move, fix, develop, and invent things for all of us? That would be a much more sensible way to get investment. The Liberals have offered us nothing but managed decline. We want national renewal. They've offered excuses. We, as Conservatives, offer results. They offer debt and drift. We offer discipline and direction. They offer scarcity. We offer possibility. They offer a failed past. We offer a bright future. They trust only in themselves to run the lives of other people. We trust in the Canadian people to make their own decisions for themselves. That is the country that we want to take. We have a very clear plan to do it. We want to lower the taxes on work, investment, home building, and energy. Let's cut income taxes for real, not $83 a year, a real income tax cut that will actually boost take-home pay and reward hard work. Let's get rid of taxes on energy, like the industrial carbon tax. Let's get rid of all taxes on home building, which would be enough to reduce home building costs in some provinces by as much as $200,000. Right. Let's get rid of investment. Let's get rid of taxes on investment. You want more investment? Stop taxing investment. No capital gains tax for anybody who reinvests in Canada. That would be a way to get lots of investment going. We need to unlock and reward the entrepreneurship of this country. But right now, our entrepreneurs are like eagles locked in a bird cage. They can't go anywhere because they're hemmed in and blocked from flying by high government taxes and heavy regulatory burden. We want to liberate Canadians to spread their wings, their economic wings, and fly. We want this to be the most rewarding place for people to work, start a business, build a home, dig a mine, set up a factory, make stuff again. That is the country that we envision, Madam Speaker. We want sound money so that when hardworking waitresses and assembly line workers get their paycheck and put it in the bank account, it doesn't lose its value with each passing day. That means we have to stop the violence the government is doing to our money. Stop the money printing. Get the Bank of Canada back to its job of core low inflation and ultimately address the real foundational problem, which is that the government is spending money it does not have on things we do not need. Let's control the government spending so that the Canadian people can have strong, sound money again. The Liberals want a country where the government is rich and the people are poor. We want the people to live with abundance and opportunity. And that, by the way, means we need to unlock energy. There has been no history in the world of defeating poverty that has not involved low-cost and abundant energy. We, on the Conservative side, want to unlock the trillions of dollars of oil and gas and uranium and hydroelectricity, our water, our rocks, our molecules, our atoms used for our benefit here in a sovereign and strong Canada.
Hear, hear.
That is our vision. This is a bright and optimistic vision, and it's one that I think is going to inspire our young people who are in so desperate need of hope. And I want to say to our youth today, we as Conservatives see you. We see the heavy bags under your eyes as you work that third shift in a single day, or you're off to drop off Uber Eats again because you need it to pay your rent. We hear the stress and the strain in your voice as you wonder how you're going to pay the rent. We hear also the tone of hopelessness as you wonder whether you'll ever be able to start a family. We hear you, we see you, we are with you, and we are here to offer you homes, jobs, and hope. Our young people will once again be rewarded for their ambition, their hard work, their ingenious activity, their contribution to our country. Their hard work will once again be liberated to their own benefit and to the benefit of all Canadians. We are not here to tell our youth who have done nothing but sacrifice since their teenage years that they need to sacrifice more at the altar of a costly, confiscatory, and expensive Liberal government. The hard work of our young people should go to their benefit. This should be a land of promise, freedom, and opportunity for our youth. And so we reiterate that what this country needs is an affordable budget for an affordable life for all of our people, in a country that rewards hard work, unlocks entrepreneurs, a nation not of bureaucrats and busybodies, of rulers and rule makers, of gatekeepers and grandees, but instead a nation of adventurers and artists, of entrepreneurs and explorers, of workers and warriors, of pioneers and patriots, all united to restore the promise of Canada that anyone from anywhere can do anything, that hard work gets you a great life on a safe street in a beautiful house under our proud flag, Canada First, Canada Forever. Merci beaucoup.